Here's a common chord formula. And here's that same chord progression in Anjuna electronic style. And here it is in a jazz house style. To understand this chord formula and chord formulas in general, let's talk about 4 ways that we can use numbers when making music. Semitones are our musical ruler, a way of measuring the distance between 2 tones. When dealing with semitones, we're considering all 12 notes, the chromatic scale. Just like when measuring with a ruler, the note we start on is not 1, it's 0. If we measure the distance between A and E, we'll start on A. Since we haven't yet gone anywhere, this is 0 semitones. A to B flat is 1 semitone. A to B is 2 semitones. A to C, 3 semitones. A to C sharp, 4 semitones. A to D, 5 semitones. A to D sharp, 6 semitones. And A to E is 7 semitones. Semitones are important because it's the way that DAWs, synths, and most other pieces of musical technology deal with musical distances. When working with scales, we are no longer dealing with the 12 notes of the chromatic scale. Now we are working with the 7 notes of the major or minor scale. We can make our lives easier by assigning each of the 7 notes a number, 1 through 7. These are scale degrees. With scale degrees, we do call the first note 1, as opposed to 0 when we're working with semitones. This is because with scale degrees, we're not measuring distance necessarily. Instead, we're just assigning each of the notes a numeric identity. You may be thinking, why would I want to do that, and now have to remember and think of 2 things rather than just 1? Let's look at an example. If I have a musical idea that goes from A, E, B, C, and back to A, these letter names only apply to the key of A minor. If I can conceptualize this idea as numbers, as 1, 5, 2, 3, 1, I can now pack this idea up and unpack it in any other key. I'm just thinking 1, 5, 2, 3, 1. Numbers can also represent the components of a chord. When building chords, you reset the numbers so that 1 is the note of the chord you are building. For example, in the key of A minor, the triad built on the note A would be A, C, and E. 1, 3, and 5. In this case, the numbers are the same as the scale degrees. But if we wanted to build the triad on the 5 of the scale, E, we would regard E as 1, making G 3 and B 5. This allows us to have a single concept of how a chord is constructed and gives us the ability to slide that construction around the scale. To refer to the different chords of the scale, you use the scale degree that chord is built on. So if our chord progression starts on A minor, then goes to F major, and then to G major, we could represent this as 1, 6, 7. But this could be extremely confusing, because how do we know that we're referring to the chords built on those scale degrees and not the notes A, F, and G? By using Roman numerals, it signals that you're referring to the chords built on those scale degrees and not just the individual notes. An uppercase Roman numeral indicates a major chord, and a lowercase Roman numeral indicates a minor chord. Flats and sharps can be used in combination with the Roman numerals for more specificity. So for our chord progression, it would begin with a lowercase Roman numeral 1, indicating our A minor chord. Then it would be a flat uppercase Roman numeral 6, indicating our F major chord. And finally, a flat uppercase Roman numeral 7, indicating our G major chord. In this case, the flats are referencing deviations from the major scale. But don't worry about this for right now, we'll dive into it in a future video. This chord progression is common to a lot of styles of music. It's cinematic, almost heroic sounding. Even though the Roman numerals don't immediately expose this, 7 is right next to 1. The chord progression is 3 chords ascending sequentially. We can make it a little less predictable by counteracting the ascending motion with chord voicings. The chords are still ascending, but the top notes of the chords are now descending. Due to the way that most of the notes of the scale work harmoniously over the 3 chords, this progression allows for an ambient homogeneous texture that really suits the electronic style. I have taken advantage of this by anchoring the melody around the note A, which is the root note of the scale and also the root note of the 1 chord, A minor. When the progression moves to the 6th chord, F major, that A note in the melody becomes the 3rd. This creates a simultaneous sense of motion and stillness, like you're standing in the middle of a time lapse. Another way to explore this idea is to create a pattern in A minor, and then play the roots of the 1 chord, the 6th chord, and the 7 chord with the bass. This will automatically place the A minor material in the context of those chords. This is a great solution if you're finding that when you go to create chord progressions, they sound predictable and formulaic. I've done this in the bridge sections of this tune. The drone, atmospheric tracks, and delay all communicate A minor, while the bass continues to play the 3 root notes, A, F, and G. The Anjuna style often uses this triad-based harmonic vocabulary. To get a jazz flavor, we'll need to extend beyond the triad. A triad is the first 3 leapfrogged notes. For a more colorful sound, keep going in this same manner. If you're wondering why these notes are referred to as 9 and 11 when we only have 7 notes in our scale, check out this video which breaks it down. The fun is creating harmonic and melodic novelty, giving these blobs of notes direction. There are infinite ways to go about this, and it's where your individuality and creativity really shine through. I liked the sound of taking this A minor 11 voicing and preceding it with the top 2 notes 1 note above in the scale. Now we've got a riff. Over the F major chord, I took advantage of how most of the notes in the scale work over the 1 chord and the 6th chord. To create a subtle phrase and avoid overt repetition, I changed the 2 notes to approach from below rather than above. A small tweak can go a long way. Perhaps the most important element that turned this into a jazz house vibe is the syncopated rhythms. Syncopation is just emphasizing the weak beats. Practically what this means is just scooting notes to the left or right on the grid, or ahead or behind in time. If something occurs on the quarter note, try it the 16th note before or after. If that sounds too off-kilter, try the 8th note before or after. The more you nudge notes to the offbeats or weak beats, the more it will have a jazz or funk feel. It is possible to push this too far, where the rhythms will fall out of balance and potentially start to topple over. This is where the dance element really comes to life, the balance between strong and weak beats, chaos and order, flair and anchor, or consistency and chance. If you'd like to book a lesson, book me as a co-producer and/or session musician, grab some of my presets, project files, or MIDI and sample packs, head over to my website, jaronlopez.com, or visit my Patreon page. Everything's linked below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.